couple days ago, a couple weeks ago, phone rings. Was it St. Peter? Was it ROKKR? Take us through that moment.
Yeah, it was Dustin, and he said, "Hey, I got the ROKKR on the phone, and we got something that we'd like to tell you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, why is Rod on the call?" And then he told me and he welcomed me to the brotherhood, and I said, it's an absolute honor, and I really appreciate it. And I can't believe I'm going to be in the same thing as you are. He said, "Hey, we're all equal here." And I'm like, "Well, some of us didn't have 380 for our career, and so, but it's just, everybody here knows Rod. Like, he's just a legit good human being. It just was like it's an honor to get that phone call from him." And St. Pete was on the, so it was really special.
But I mean, your numbers back up. I mean, Dave did a great job.
Yeah.
Laying out your numbers, like you're worthy of being in the Twins Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know, but it's like one thing I tell now, like just with on leadership stuff, and as we kind of go through stuff, it's, it's just, usually what drives you is your insecurity, because you want to be like, because it continues to drive. Like, I remember I was on third base once, and Derek Jeter was there, and Jeter was complaining about this and that and stuff like that, and he's hitting like 280, or he's like 320 at the time, and he's talking how bad he is. I'm like, dude, you're like Derek Jeter, like it's phenomenal. And he's like, "Well, Corey, I'm doing this." I said, "Dude, try going up there with my swing." Like, and he ended up hitting 330 that year, but that's a part of the whole part of it. But yeah, it is, it is humbling to see kind of who else is up there, and like I joke with Dustin is when he first kind of telling me they went through the process and kind of knowing all those numbers, because the game has changed on the numbers standpoint. He goes, "You were actually pretty good," and I was like, "I think that's a compliment, and I'll take it as a compliment, but I appreciate that."
How crazy was that at the time? Like, there was talk of contraction.
Yeah.
There was talk actually at one point of a portable stadium.
Yeah. I never heard that one.
Like 02, 03, 04 was so special.
Yeah, that contraction was a tough one because I was the only guy in Minnesota. And so I was going to all these like neighborhood parties and doing all this stuff, and like every weekday it felt like I was going someplace else. And I remember even at the Metrodome going to part this block party at the Metrodome. So it was this, we were going everywhere, and I had Lavelle call on me trying to get the insight. I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. I'm just going place to place to try to keep the Twins here because, as you guys know, it's multi-generational here in Minnesota, and it's something that connects like a young fan and an old fan. And for the game of baseball, I love that part of it. And I didn't want to see this leave Minnesota, and especially like we got fans in Canada. Like, it's just the Minnesota baseball is something unique, and so that was pretty crazy. And then we go on and. Because when we first started, we were considered a 4A baseball team because nobody really we're better than a AAA team, but not quite a big league team. And as we started to get our feet under us a little bit, we started to become more competitive, and we learned how to win, and we learned how to continue to win. Because that one year, what we're up like 19 games, and Cleveland came back and overtook us, and we broke that record. And we like literally panicked, and that's the year that TK retired, and then Gardy the next year, and then we got a guy. Then we brought in Mike Jackson, and that year Mike Jackson really taught us what it takes to win, and say, "Hey, just win the series. Focus on the series." So every game, every series throughout the year, that was our focus. We're trying to win the series, and they took that same mentality into the playoffs. And I go around, I do a speaking called "The Worst 3 Innings of My life of my career," and it's like literally the first 3 innings of the ALDS against Oakland. And like if you go back and watch that, it was bad, and somehow we came back and beat that and won that series.
Any regrets though? I mean, that Angels team was loaded, but did you feel like after that first playoff series win that, hey, we can actually maybe win this whole thing?
Absolutely. When we went in, we won our first game. Joe Mage pitched phenomenal, and then Rick Reed came in and he got around the lineup twice. And then the third time they were taking some pretty good swings off of him, and like, oh, they got him now. So I was like, I wonder, hopefully they'll bring somebody else in because, he had two great, I think he pitched 3-4 innings, and all of a sudden they just got locked in, and they just didn't turn back from there.
Corey, when you hear your name attached with Twins Hall of Famer, what is just the emotions that kind of come through you just having that attached to your name now?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at it. The thing so I'm going to have my name, like you said, is going to be attached to Corey Koskie, kind of a Twins Hall of Famer. But when you really think about, well, when I really think about all the people that have been a part of that journey for us, you go to my family, my wife, my parents, my wife's parents. Like I can tell you stories about how they have impacted throughout the situation, and then my coaches, all my teammates, and all the people that supported me. Like so, there's a lot of names that really should be attached to it, but I'm the one who gets to be on wherever that is. And so it's just one of those, like, it's the whole that saying that it takes a community. It's true, and like it's just so thankful for all the words of wisdom, because everybody thinks the path is like literally like this, but it's like up and down and up and down, and who's going to help you lift you up in some of the difficult times, and who's going to kind of pull you down and keep you kind of straight on when you're riding really high. And then you need like the support at home, and how supportive my wife Shannon was through the whole thing. Like we had kids, like raising kids, and she didn't have a nanny, and like she was like carrying these car seats, on the plane, and it's just her, and I have no idea how she did that, to come see us play in Chicago and come to do all that stuff. So you look at, like, there's a lot of things that go into that, and I'm the lucky one who's, like, my name, I'm going to be the one recognized for that, but there's just a lot of people that just should be like sub names on that.
Sure. What does the organization mean to you, and when you reflect on your time, just what does it mean to you?
Yeah, one of the most difficult times is when I signed with the Blue Jays. That was tough. Like, I wanted to be a lifelong Twin, but it made no sense for me to stay. From a financial standpoint, I was forced to move on. Because we just built a house here, our kids here, we're starting to establish schools, and it was tough. But I always felt like a Twin. I'd come back, I literally always felt like a Twin, and the team always treated me phenomenal, even when I was one to the other team, and even when I was going through my stuff with my concussions. Rick Aberman, who was a team psychologist at the time, he's the guy that I talked to as I'm trying to deal with my concussions. So it was more like, and we live here, so it's, the Twins organization has been absolutely phenomenal for me. Dave has been, like, I meet with Dave, maybe 2-3 times a year, even at post-career, and, there's just multiple people in the organization who's just meant everything to us.
When you went to Iowa,
Maxie,
hey, good to see you, buddy. Congratulations.
Poked out of nowhere.
When you went to Iowa to the community college, you told me once you showed up, you thought you were a special recruit, and there's like 100 guys there, and you realized, man, they just mass recruited. To think about that day in fall baseball to now, I mean, does that just blow you away?
Obviously, there was a hand on me to guide this journey, because I've told your story, and if you guys haven't heard, like, I didn't start really playing baseball till I was 19 years old. My best sport was volleyball. The sport I loved was hockey. I just wasn't good enough to play it, and I played baseball to fill the gaps. And to now look at, like, what is that, 25, 30 years later, to be going to be inducted into the Twins Hall of Fame. Like, I can't give credit to myself and this stuff like that. Obviously, this is a God thing and a Jesus thing, because if you look at it, it shouldn't be. And that size of, like, the story that Maxie alluded to was, like, I made a decision because I actually had a full ride offer to go to UMD. The coach came up and watched me in a pre-senior tournament, and he's like, yeah, actually, we don't want you down there. So I thought I would get another offer the next year. That didn't happen, so I decided I'm going to go play volleyball at the University of Manitoba. And all of this, out of the blue, a coach from Boone, Iowa started calling me. He's like, hey, this is John Smith from Boone, Iowa. Come down and play some baseball. I said, well, Coach Smith, I'm playing volleyball. He's like, volleyball? That's a girl sport. And so I'm like, no, we actually play men's volleyball up here in Canada, and it's a big thing. And so, but literally, he called me every day. And so I went on my knees and I prayed. Look, I played volleyball every day for the last 6 years. Hockey's not in a picture. What do I do? And I just felt the push to go down to Boone, Iowa. I show up to Boone, Iowa. The first day I walk onto the field, and there's like literally 90 guys there. I'm like, what did I just do? But I'm like, you know what? It's going to be okay, because he recruited me. Like, this guy called me every day, so he really, really wanted me. And so as I start talking to the guys on the field, he called everybody every day. And so I went home that night, and I was like upset. I was crying. I'm like, what did I do? And I told my mom, I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm done. Let's go home. I'm going to go see if I can go play volleyball. And she goes, go one more day. And I went, so I'm like, okay, I'll go one more day. And so I was going home. Like in my mind, I was going home. I show up the next day. I look across the field, and I see a guy with an M on his hat. And it was a Manitoba hat. And so I walk over there. I say, hey, you got a Manitoba hat. Let me, like, who's that? He goes, I traded with some guy from Manitoba. And I was like, oh, because he said, where are you from? He's like, I'm from Nova Scotia. I'm like, dude, I got a Nova Scotia hat. I said, do you know this guy, this CF guy? He goes, that's me. I'm Curtis Falls. I said, hey, do you have CK under your hat? And he's like, yeah, because that's me. I'm Corey Koskie. We traded hats 3 months before that at the Nationals for baseball. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay here. And me and Curtis, so I played with Curtis. We end up living together, and then we moved together and lived together in BC at National Baseball Institute. If it wasn't for that, I would have went home and played volleyball. And so what's this, some dude with a big old head wearing a Manitoba, and the thing was squeezed in. Like Curtis had a big head, and it was like squeezed in. Yeah. Yeah.
Your defense, Corey, like that wasn't acknowledged up there, but I'm thinking like you're not in the Twins Hall of Fame without elite defense. That took a lot of work.
It did. I wasn't that good. So we talk about CC. So every Sunday, Tom Kelly had his show on CCO, and every once in a while I would listen to it coming into the ballpark, and so. As I started hitting better, I'm like, maybe I'm going to start to listen to this, because I'm like, is there anything happen? Because I was leading the team. So, like, when I first came, my first year, I played once every 3 games, once every 4 games when they gave Marty Cordova a day off because we were facing against the other team's number 1 guy. And that was TK's big thing, is like, I want to put my guys in the best situation to succeed. Like, this is my first year. I'm playing against every other team's number 1 guy. Like, I don't know how I'm being successful. I'm getting put in a position to succeed. And so, but in that time, like, I was hitting, and so I would, continue to play, and I'd hit, and I'd hit, and I'd hit, and when I had my first 2 home run game in Detroit, we go to the next game. It rained out, and I looked at the lineup. I'm not in the lineup the next day, and Sandy Alomar, because it was rain out, Sandy Alomar is in the dugout, and he's talking to a couple guys, and he's like, "Hey, Corey," I'm like, "Is Sandy Alomar talking to me?" He said, "Hey, Corey, come over here for a sec." And I said, "Hey, Mr. Alomar, nice to meet you." He goes, "Dude, what does it take to get in this lineup?" And I said, I don't know. He goes, "Dude, you hit 2 home runs yesterday, and you can't even get in the lineup today?" I said, "Well, I don't know, Mr. Alomar, just whatever, it is what it is." I was too naive to really process that. But then on this radio show, I'm listening, the fans were calling in, like, "Dude, your team isn't hitting. The only guy's hitting on your team is Koskie. Why don't you play him?" And little TK got so frustrated. He's like, "Well, where am I going to play him? Have you seen him try to catch a ball? Like, he's going to cost us 5 runs. Yeah, he might drive in 2, but he's going to cost us 5 runs. And so I'm like, okay. Like, so obviously I need to work at it a little more. And so that day I went in and told Gardy, I said, "Hey, Gardy, can we go work on some stuff?" Because I was having a lot of trouble with the turf. And, well, I had a lot of trouble before that, even outside the turf. And he's like, "Yeah." And so we went to the turf, and I'm right, left, split, doing all this stuff, trying to have boxing the balls, and Gardy got so frustrated. And Gardy's like, "Hey," he goes, "Weren't you some kind of athlete playing, like, weren't you?" I'm like, "What are you talking?" He goes, "Well, weren't you so, like, a hockey goalie?" I was like, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Weren't you some, like, all-Canadian volleyball player?" I was like, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Well, you're an athlete. Be an athlete." He goes, "When that guy hits the ball, we want you to catch it and throw it over there before that guy that hit it to you gets there." And I'm like, "Oh, I can do that." Because I was trying to do everything the way everybody, like, trying to be perfect, trying to look like a Major League Baseball. He goes, "If you want me to catch the ball and throw it over there before that guy gets there, I can do that." And so I said, "Give me your hat." I threw the hat over there, and I took my hat and threw it over there. I said, "Okay, try to score on me." And then we went and did that every day during that season, and it just helped me get comfortable catching and picking the ball. Yeah.
What was your best prank?